Hello, my name is Christopher Doldelau, and today I will be talking about the Hmong migration to the United States. As I proceed with this presentation, you will find the Hmong are an interesting group of people. They have a long history dating back to at least 400 BC from mainland China, filled with oppression and forced migration. Personally speaking, I was unaware of the Hmong people until I attended college in 2006. In fact, I've made a lot of good friends who happen to be Hmong during my time at San Francisco State University. In popular culture, the Hmong were featured in the 2008 movie Gran Torino starring Clint Eastwood. It's an okay movie, you should watch it sometime. I don't highly recommend it, but I feel it's relevant to my topic. Anyway, back to my presentation. Who are the Hmong people? They're an indigenous people in Asia, a subgroup of the Miao ethnicity in China. With this subgroup, however, there are many different clans which are scattered around different parts of Asia. Their predominant language is Mub, and there are an estimated 14 to 15 million Hmong worldwide. As stated in the beginning, the Hmong are a migratory people originally from China. Because they are historically on the move, they share many aspects of their culture with China and Southeast Asian countries. You may remember this picture on the right from the title slide. This is traditional clothing that is handmade by the women in the family. It is bright and contains beautiful embroidery. They are traditionally worn during special events such as Hmong New Year and weddings. Lastly, on the top right corner of all these slides is a story cloth. These cloths are also handmade and depict the story of specific clans. They usually contain stories of war, migration, and daily life. Because of Han Chinese invaders, the Hmong were displaced around 200 BC. During the 18th century, they migrated further south to escape Chinese assimilation. They finally settled in the mountains of Vietnam, Laos, and Thailand, usually around 3,000 to 6,000 feet in elevation. Here's just a quick graphic of the Hmong migration during the 18th century from China to Southeast Asia. So how did a portion of the Hmong people end up in the United States? During the Vietnam War, many Southeast Asians were displaced and seeking refuge in the United States, with the Hmong included. A neat fact, the US CIA trained Hmong that were living in the mountains of Laos to fight against communist insurgencies. Some of those who were trained eventually ended up seeking refuge in the US in the mid-1970s. When they did settle here, most ended up in California and migrating to states like Minnesota and Wisconsin years later. As a result of their recent migration to and within the United States, the Hmong have a strong sense of connectedness. They place a high value on family and community. Some make yearly plans to travel to St. Paul, Minnesota during Hmong New Year, which has the largest Hmong population in one city. Additionally, according to Manalo in 2008, the Hmong make a conscious effort to preserve their heritage and language, making sure to expose their children to Hmong history early and often. Unfortunately, their migration has exposed them to some vulnerabilities. For instance, refugees who arrived in the 70s have a high prevalence of viral hepatitis, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Additionally, the Hmong language has few medical terms, making them less apt to seek medical attention when feeling ill. With regards to health, it is a common phenomenon for any immigrant group coming to the U.S. to have higher incidence of comorbidities. According to the 2008 documentary Unnatural Causes: Becoming American, issues such as difficult working conditions, social exclusions, and the initial reason for leaving their homeland causes higher rates of chronic disorders such as diabetes, obesity, and stress. That being said, the Hmong people have been found to have just that, a higher prevalence of diabetes, hypertension, obesity, and heart disease. While some researchers say the migration causes these chronic conditions, other researchers argue it's the adoption of Western culture. Both sides make valid points. Additionally, it has been found that there's a high incidence of alcoholism among men. Typically, drinking is present at social functions, such as weddings, birthdays, and even funerals. However, since their migration, researchers have found that many Hmong men tend to be heavy drinkers, possibly due to the traumatic events they've experienced. Sadly, the drinking continues into the youth and is furthered by peer pressure. Unfortunately, while the incidence of alcoholism is increased in the Hmong population, these data are not accurate because they are not inclusive of all Hmong people in the U.S. Rather, they focus on specific cities, either in California or Minnesota. It is unfortunate that these chronic health problems exist in the Hmong population in the U.S. Common barriers to health education include these that are listed. Preventive medicine, health, and lifestyle practices are not usually emphasized. Many elders uphold beliefs about causes of illnesses, such as curses and stressful interactions. And traditional Hmong remedies are used for chronic ailments such as diabetes and heart failure. Lastly, in health studies that involve Asians and Asian Americans, the Hmong people are not heavily represented. This leads to a lack of resources and knowledge for this particular population. The resources that do exist, however, vary by city. For example, the Minnesotan government has specific resources such as translation videos, videos about beliefs and norms of the Hmong people, and a quick reference chart of the Hmong clan names and common translational phrases. Another example of health resources come from Stockton, California. These resources include health, community, and even legal resources for Hmong and Southeast Asian communities between Merced and Sacramento. This concludes my presentation of the Hmong migration to the United States. We briefly went over the Hmong origins, their migration to Southeast Asia, and the United States following the Vietnam War. Also, we learned some strengths and vulnerabilities as a result of their westward migration, as well as some common chronic illnesses the Hmong face. Lastly, we reviewed some resources that are available to them. I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and I hope you learned something new. If you have any questions or would like to know more about the Hmong people, you may check out my list of references on the next slide. Thank you.